But first, to the power of words. The left has learned a sweet trick to fool the apathetic masses. Just give whatever divisive, radical program or group you're pushing a sweet, wholesome name nobody reasonable could possibly object to, and then ram through highly contentious and unpopular policies while labelling any dissenting voices bigots. Groups such as Black Lives Matter and Antifa have names we all agree with, but their violent, divisive antics and Marxist ideology are a different matter entirely. Just like there's nothing democratic about the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, there's nothing anti-fascist about the dangerous totalitarian activism of those unwashed Antifa thugs. Closer to home, we've got programs such as safe schools and respectful relationships, which sound wonderful until you take a closer look at the detail and the radical gender theory that underpins much of the ideology. And then there's the so-called anti-conversion legislation that just passed the Victorian Parliament. It's another insidious case of the name not matching the detail. Of course, any reasonable person is against gay conversion therapy, but these new laws will do far more than that. They will introduce changes to the Equal Opportunity Act that will redefine gender identity, and that will have far-reaching consequences, particularly for women. The legislation may also make it unlawful for parents and counsellors to provide sound guidance to children confused about their gender identity. We already have children removed from their home because the parents object to the child undergoing irreversible cross-sex hormone treatment. In a case that came to light late last year, the parents watched on helplessly as their family was torn apart because they wanted their 15-year-old child to receive non-invasive psychological care instead of irreversible sex change treatment. An Australian court found the parents to be abusive because of their failure to embrace their child's gender identity. It's no wonder that doctors and therapists are deeply concerned about Victoria's new laws. The National Association of Practising Psychiatrists and the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists have both separately written to the Victorian Attorney-General about their serious concerns with this so-called anti-conversion bill, which they fear will criminalise therapy for troubled youngsters experiencing gender issues. The National Association of Practising Psychiatrists President Dr. Philip Morris has come together with legal expert Professor Patrick Parkinson to point out that this legislation is based to a very large extent on false, unscientific propositions. They wrote, "The science does not in any way support the criminalisation of therapy for children and young people who identify as trans. And there is no history of unethical practice in this area that in any way parallels the long discontinued and ineffective practices that attempt to change sexual orientation." These are completely different issues. They go on to explain that providing therapy that may see a patient decide not to proceed with irreversible treatments to change their gender is in fact an ethical obligation for health professionals. Even the normally woke AMA has backed Dr. Morris and his concerns about the treatment of kids confused about their gender. But where in all this is the hapless, spineless Victorian opposition? It says plenty about the ineffectiveness of the Victorian Liberals that academics, feminists and doctors put up greater resistance against the excesses of this anti-conversion bill than their MPs. They were stupid enough to fall into the trap that Labor set for them. They did not want to be seen to be opposing so-called anti-conversion laws, never mind that the legislation is far more than the virtuous name suggests.